can you believe next year will be a quarter of a century since the experiment in Takoradi with Sky? I mean, who would have thought?
Wow.
It'll be 20.
Are you kidding me?
It'll be 25
yeah,
years.
Yeah, you're right.
1997.
Yes, because I joined the Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
And those were some good days.
We had so much fun. We had so much fun.
Too much fun.
You know?
It was a relaxed atmosphere. It wasn't this cutthroat. Oh, God. I can't. Look, I cannot listen to radio in this country. I'm telling you, I'm not kidding. I do not go near radio in Ghana. We had the presence of mind. We had good sense.
I know, we can never have those times back here, but sometimes I genuinely miss it.
No, I do. I do too. I do too. Sometimes I'm surprised. I have such memories, and I'm sitting there, wow. Look at the number of people who came, who helped. This thing was organic. I was so organic.
All of that thought led me to one conclusion, that I should use my skills to talk to people like you, record it, and then one day sit down and write a book about that experiment for the sake of the future, because
it is so not a bad idea, I'm telling you. It isn't a bad idea, Philip. It's a good idea. It's a good idea because it was a pivotal moment in the history of broadcasting in Ghana. The privatization of broadcasting. It was a pivotal moment. It brought out the likes of Oladipo, Dorinando, people that even in Takoradi, the Kofi Jitra,
KGA.
Even in KGA in the local, it was offensive.
Yeah.
People in their own small societies were able to pop out and exhibit the talents they had and let's call it whatever. But it was very important, very important. So I would say go for it.
Thank you. So my idea is that by having the conversation such as I'm about to have with you, we will share memories and remember things that we've probably forgotten. Have a few laughs. And so I do not know at all how you came to Sky. How did your life with Sky start? I mean, how did it all start for you?
I had just relocated to Takoradi after living in Accra, and Reggie was transferred because he used to work with British American Tobacco. So they moved their whole operation and head office and everything to Takoradi. I had just finished Lagos, and I was working in the airline industry with Alitalia. So, newly married, living in Accra, husband living in Takoradi. My mother took one look at me and said, are you sure you really want to stay married? And I'm like, what's wrong with you? Okay. Leave the husband to live in Takoradi alone and live in Accra. And you'll understand what I'm saying. One day I just packed up. I didn't even tell him that I was resigning. I just resigned because honestly, that job was rubbish. So I wasn't going to miss it. And I packed up and came to Takoradi. So I've been a housewife and just bored out of my mind. And one day I turned on, what was it? Was it a radio? But I said, that's a new, yes. I turned on the radio and they were doing the test, whatever.
Test transmission.
The test transmission. You remember? Good. So I'm listening and they were saying that they were looking for people with experience or whatever to come. And I had, interestingly, that very week I had just found out I was pregnant, but it wasn't showing. So I dressed up, to the line, and went up the hill, Mount Sky. I got there were two gentlemen, one neatly dressed and one kind of looking casual and slouched on the couple. But my focus, of course, was on the one who was neatly dressed. That was Kim B.
Kim B.
And the one slouched, yes, You remember Kimbi?
I know Kimbi very well. Yes, remember him
You
so
remember
well.
Kimbi?
No, I do remember him very well.
You remember Kimbi was always sharply dressed. I mean, even casual, he was sharp.
Very true.
And the one wearing a bogola, I remember this thing like it was yesterday. The one wearing the bogolan shirt and just lying on the carpet was really
Oh man, have you just made my day with that?
Oh yeah, I'm telling you, I greeted and focused on Kimbi and had a chat with Kimbi. So I said, I've just and I'm looking for a job, and I heard that the radio station had started, and I wanted to join them. So they look at me and they're like, so what's my background is? And I said, I want to work in the airline industry, but I know I can do this. So the two of them go and have a talk. They went there for a bit, and then they came out and said, okay, I should go into the studio, sit behind the microphone. I've never done this before. Sit behind the microphone and then read and give me something to read.
Mm-hmm.
And I read. And they said I should read again. And I read. And they said I should read again. So they said, okay, thank you very much. I should read my number and, don't call me. So I signed them and then I left.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, was it a few days later, they called me and said I could, join them. That was the beginning of and the backstory. So when, I joined them and we got familiar and they got to know me and all that, apparently, Willie was pissed off that when I came, he said he claimed I didn't greet him. But I only focused on Kimbi. So I told him, Mother, and you know me, I said, listen, when I came, there were two guys. One lying on the carpet, one sitting up. Who would I talk? So, and it was a huge argument between the two of them, that Willie said, no, I was stuck up. And Kimbi said, he thinks I can do the job. So the two of them went back and forth and Kimbi won the day. So after I joined them and we used to laugh about it. We used to say, Maame crowd by a crowd who knew where we them to ask them on the carpet. There was a way we go about it. Yeah, so that was how I joined that.
Amazing, because I know that you were one of the 19 original pioneers. Yeah. And of course, there were lots of stories back then interwoven in such a way that no one person could have known all the story. And, having worked with you for years, it's only now that I'm hearing this aspect of the story for the first time.
We used to laugh about it all the time. Anytime we would I would do something, he said, yes, you are a woman, where is he going to consider you for him and you? I'm like, oh my friend, when you lie on the carpet and somebody comes to the office, don't mind, everything, our private joke. Yeah. It was so interesting. With Uncle Okua, blessed memory, oh Jesus. And AC, my darling sister.
AC Jan.
Who also passed.
Oh, awful. Yeah. We lost her to cancer.
Yeah. Awful. I mean.
And then there was Maame Fua de Graft Edu.
Maame Fua, yeah.
Yuki Ampofo.
There was Maame Fua, there was Yuki. I met Yuki, yes. In January, yeah. I met her in January and I was telling her, because when I had Nana a year into Nana April, just about a year, and so when I had him, then I came back to work. It was you who was babysitting Nana in the office, and would feed him, would make sure he was sleeping, and I remember this story. That time this, what do you call it? The Jews. Aztec. You remember Aztec? They started the Jews. I've even forgotten the name of
Oh, yes. I remember that.
You remember?
Yes, I remember. Yes.
Yes. That kind of put me. So Yuki brought one to the office for herself. And I think Nana was just about a few months old. So, but he was eating at that time. So Yuki said, "Oh, Nana, take a sip of this juice." This little boy takes the thing, and by the time Yuki got it back, it was finished. And Yuki got it was that place was a family. We were so it was home. You loved to go to work. I mean,
yeah.
Leaving, we used to close and then we'd be sitting around. You didn't have anything doing, but you just be sitting there just because it was fun.
It was fun.
You remember? Right?
I do.
Fun, just fun. I mean, I used to work 7 days a week. 3 days of the week.
That was standard.
Work every day.
That was standard, yes. For most of us.
And actually from little or no pay, we did this thing, not thinking about the money. We were more excited about growing the business than what we get out of it.
And the passion, the friendships that occurred, and just the fun environment. Now, tell me,
it was amazing.
Your firstborn, which year was he born?
98.
98.
Nana is a 98.
So we were at least a few months. Which month in 98? April, yes. So we started formal operations in October. So October to
in October, was it October?
Yes, October 97. So I think I would have remembered you being pregnant at the time, and I also remember.
No, I wasn't. I was like, well, so there's no way you couldn't remember.
That's right.
It was very obvious this woman was pregnant.
And of course, when I think about it today, in terms of maternity care for women and all that, I mean, it's almost like you didn't really face that situation because you came to work until almost the very last moment, and not long after you gave birth.
No, listen. Interesting. This reminds me of another story. So I told you when I went for the interview, I was pregnant.
Yes.
But it was the first few weeks, about the second week or so. So I was fine, and I remember what I was wearing. I was wearing a mini skirt. And you could just tell from looking at me that months down the line, here I was, stomach out, wobbling in the office, and Willie goes, Maame? So, I was like 4 or 5 months into working, and he goes, hey! So you knew? I said, so what's the problem? I only found out when I started working here, and your problem being what? He goes, as for this woman, I knew you were trouble from the start. So I worked, I had Nana on a Tuesday. The weekend before I had Nana, I used to do newspaper review. Yes. And then Saturday, Sky Market. So I went and did newspaper review on Sunday. And then, on Monday, my husband said to me, if I hear you on the radio on Monday, I will come over there and haul you,
remove you
out of that place.
Yeah.
Yes, remove you. So Monday, and my sister was with me. because I was close to having the baby. So my husband said to her, she's not allowed to step foot outside this house. So Monday, there was no way. I remember Kujata came. You remember Kujata used to come with the bus to pick us up.
Yes, he goes round and picks all of us.
Monday morning, yes. So Monday morning, here comes Kujata, drives majestically to my house, and my sister tells him to go back. I'm not going to work. I was like, this woman. So Monday, and then Tuesday, I had an appointment at the hospital. So I went and saw my doctor, my gynae. He checked. He said, "Oh, it looks like, yeah, you could have the baby anytime." So I said, "Okay, fine." So Tuesday, I come back from the hospital, and because I hadn't been to work on Monday, most people just wanted, because you know how I was in the office screaming at people and laughing and all that. So they said Monday the office was so quiet.
Of course.
So the first people to visit was Maame and Yuki. They descend onto me in the house. "Oh, Sister Maame, we missed you," and I was in labor at the time they came.
Wow.
But my sister, you know how Africans are. So she said to me, "I know you're in labor. When you're in labor, you don't let people know you are in labor." Listen to this. And I'm telling you, this was pain, pain I had never experienced. This was my first child.
Yeah.
These idiots, Yuki and Manifra, sit down, chat. I'm looking at these girls and thinking, when will these people get up and go? So I would leave them, go to the bedroom, and run around, and just, the pain, and I would come back. So the second time I came back, I said to them, "Hey, you go out, go."
Because you didn't want to tell you didn't want to tell them you are in labor.
No. I didn't want to tell them. So I just said, go. And because I was their big sister, they knew that I used to bully them. So as soon as I said, go, say, "Oh, we miss you," I said, "Go, I'll see you at work very soon." So they left. About an hour later, there comes baby. I'm like, "Oh,
was that
Jesus,
at home?"
Why was Daniel? Yes, at home. Baby also stops back. We miss you. He also came and sat there, and of course I was in labor. And then I'll say, "Baby, I'm coming. I'll go to the room, I'll walk around, and then I'll come back, and then I'll go." And I'm like, so about the second or third time, I said to him, "Baby, I need to sleep." So he said, "Okay, I'm going." So baby leaves. And I think around 6 p.m., my sister says, "Okay, it's time to go." So we gather ourselves. So I saw all these people on Tuesday, and by 9 p.m., I had Nana Popo. So I worked literally, till the day before I had what?
Wow. Worked till the day before you had a baby.
And that was, I stopped working and direct because he said, Reggie said to me, "If I hear you on the radio, I will come and haul you out." He was joking. Because that's actually my sister said, "He's not going. Go away." But can you imagine how surprised Maame and Yuki and Betty were when they heard on Wednesday morning that, "Oh, I had the baby." I was like, I really didn't know what was going on here. I was instructed not to. I mean, can you imagine? You're suffering and they tell you shouldn't let anybody know you're suffering. I mean, how? Yeah. That's crazy.
I can tell you who you were in the office. You were a big sister, and you bullied us when we deserved it. And you had an attitude where it's like you were not afraid of anything. In fact, when you walk in, it's like 3 bulldozers have arrived and you better behave. If not, you are going to set us right. and maybe until that point, I had never met a woman with so much confidence, or even a man. You were just full of it.
The way I would sometimes just go all out and fire with it. I'm your boss, right? I don't care, right? A big boy would tell me, now, what Maame is saying, it's true. What you're saying, it doesn't make sense. Then and you'll be like, I'm going to big boy, you're always backing Maame. Yeah, always backing Maame.
Wow.
Oh.
And it took me some time to find out that
we had to.
Yeah, it took me some time to find out that your brother, Nat Brew, or rather your brother is Nat Brew, because even at that time, your brother was already very popular, very well known. And then, but I don't think I've ever heard you say it before. I don't think you even cared about it. You were just your own person,
Yeah, he was my brother, yeah. And, you know how that thing is when you know somebody. I mean, his stardom didn't faze me because he was my brother. And he was to me, he was my big brother. Mm-hmm. And that was it, because I couldn't see myself using him to further myself or my career or whatever. And that confidence that you're talking about, that I trusted myself to be able to do it on my own. I mean, if because of my brother, I get something else. It's only bonus. But for me to stand on my feet, I thought that I could do it. And it comes from the fact that I was nurtured by parents and uncles and brothers who saw me as being more than just a woman. They inculcated in me the fact that just as Maame, she's strong, she can do it. And my uncle whom I lived with and who brought me up, Kwesi Brew, who was a poet, an acclaimed poet. He was an acclaimed ambassador, for he worked in the foreign service forever. So, Philip, if you live with this huge man, I mean, in every sense, intellectually, he was way ahead of his peers. He was a quintessential gentleman, fancy man, was not afraid to tell you if you were being an idiot. He would tell you to the face and make sure that the next time you don't do that again. And then in the next moment, he's the one who is cuddling you, who is, laughing with you and joking with you. So I grew up around things like that.
You see, I'm glad you've just told me that, right? Because even now, I feel that it explains the kind of person that I remember you being. Fearless, happy, always, making fun. But if there's something serious you had to address, you approach it with such confidence and fearlessness. I mean, I mean, you were not, and you had good, strong opinions that were grounded in fact. I mean, you had the sense that, well, Maame actually knows what she's talking about.
Exactly, and that was my advantage I had in life. I grew up around people like that who didn't want to put me down. My paternal side of the family, they were raised by women. Women, I mean, strong, tough women, and most of them had sons, strong, tall. They had a lot of respect for women because they were brought up by women. They were larger than life. So they always made, especially me, I got that from them that they had a lot of respect for women. They knew that a woman could achieve even more than a man. So it was just, so the women in my family are basically very strong. Very strong-willed, doing the right thing. But we also have a lot of respect for our men. A lot of people find me, this woman, she's too tough. This reminds me of Willie.
Yeah.
He'd say that, as for you, Maame, I won't say anything. I know who will get you. And then he will mention my husband's name. Because he knew that even though I was tough, I had a lot of respect for my husband. But he says, if it makes sense, it's fine now. If it doesn't make sense, that's a different story. And he knew. That is why he could tell me, if I hear you on the radio on Monday, I will come and haul you out of there. And I didn't go.
and
out of respect to him.
And that's a beautiful balance, you see. And of course, I knew your husband, Reggie, very a true gentleman, that we all like. In fact, he was very much a part of the Sky family. But it is because of some of the things I experienced there in you and the other ladies in my life, and even from my own personal family and things, that when I left Ghana initially and went to England and then later on came to Australia, I was a little bit confused about the big movement for liberation of women, because I said, all the women I knew in my life were liberated. They were strong women.
Isn't it amazing how we try and put down Africa and where we come from, and we think we are backward? Interestingly, women have always been liberated in Africa, especially here in Ghana. Who chooses a chief or a king?
It's the woman who has the final say.
The head of the family. Who chooses the head of the family?
Yeah.
That is why probably it sounded strange to a lot of African women that there was talk of women liberation and all that.
They were strong. They were free. They were industrious. Look, growing up in the community, most of the time you were more afraid of mothers than fathers.
Yeah, because you see, the woman was the one in the house. Father is gone to look for, to work, formal work. Mothers were at home. She's probably someone who sells something, so she doesn't need to get out of the house. She goes to the house, go to the market, etc. But most of the time, you go to school and come back and she's there. You go and play and come back and she's there. But the father is kind of absent because he has to go and then see the breadwinner or whatever. Now, who has to have the final authority? Tell me. The person who is awake or the person who is always there with eagle eyes looking at you when you are watching my mother to take a stool and sit by you, and if you don't wash and she thinks that you haven't done a good job, you know that you're going to get a knock at the back of your head. I'm not surprised you were shocked that people were asking for more power women. Where you came from, the women were
they appointed chiefs and rulers. So what else must happen? Tell me, what date did you eventually leave Sky?
I left on the 10th of May. It was 99.
I know that after you left, I took over News Review.
Yeah, when I was there, it was 82, started. And then later on, you took over. So right. I wasn't there when you started.
Yeah.
No, I wasn't.
Right. And I know a number of times you've read the news as well, isn't it? I think we actually had your voice as a jingle that preceded the news. We call it SPN, Sky Power News.
SPN. Oh.
Yeah, sorry, the line dropped. Thank you for calling back. I appreciate it very much. So we got to the point where I was going to ask about the impact you think Sky had made on Secondary Takoradi and the Western region, and perhaps possibly beyond.
Can we actually measure the impact? It was phenomenal. Look at the number of radio stations that have flocked to that part of Ghana. In the past, before Sky, it was more like everything was concentrated in Accra. And we only had the government regional stations, the GBC radio stations that were in place. And apart from Accra, Sky gave investors and the general public the appetite for private radio. Because when the broadcasting or radio stations were privatized, it was only in Accra.
That's right.
And I doff my hat to Willie and his wife Ajwa and his brother Ken for taking that leap of faith, because I'm sure a lot of people thought, are these people crazy? How can they move out of Accra and go to a place like the Western region? And nothing happens in the Western region. It's even the harbor was dead. But that leap of faith has turned into a success story for them and for others who followed. And look at the number of people who went through Sky, who are now in other sectors of broadcasting. Take Irama Smith. Rama is with TV3.
Yes.
I don't know where Rutai is, but for some time he was also in Accra on other radio stations. Is it DeGraff Johnson?
Yes, Cyrus DeGraff Johnson.
Cyrus, yes.
And then there was Efira Kwame Jokoto. Efira,
look, yes. I mean, there's been so many people who went through Sky, even though we are not, some of us are still not in the broadcasting field, but that exposure gave us more confidence. It gave us the ability to, think outside the box and be able to tell ourselves that, I can do anything if I put my mind to it. Because bear in mind that most people, I don't know how many were trained journalists and broadcasters. The people who started Sky. Who could you point to apart from, or were veteran broadcasters apart from Uncle Opia?
Uncle Opia, yes.
And then Mr. Mold, who was part of the news team. You remember Mr. Mold?
I remember Mr. Mold. We've lost Mr. Mold as well, yes.
Yes, we've lost Mr. Mold as well. So you could count on one hand about 2 or 3 people who had, who were trained. The rest of us were just playing it by ear.
We're people with passion.
Yes, that was exactly. We had nothing but passion and the will to succeed. That was basically what we had.
And you talked about the ownership of Sky being Wilson, Ajwa, and Kennedy, just how visionary they were. And I was going to add that it's a very unusual enterprise where it's not like a normal business where you own it, so it belonged to you. No, Sky didn't belong to Wilson or his brother or Ajwa Mofa. It was owned by the community. The community felt a sense of ownership of it.
Thank you.
Which is why I thought, which is what was the power behind it. It received the approval of the masses.
If you ever get to speak to Baby Akon,
yes,
he will ask him how he got involved with Star. It will amaze you.
Really?
How these people in the community, like they say, Baby Akon, his brother-in-law, how people told him, wait, Reggie and his partners feel that welcome in Takrady to set up. They rolled out the red carpet for these guys, helped them every time, in every way. Nyakpo was just playing jazz music. He wasn't collecting a salary.
It's true. He was just playing jazz. It's true. I remember.
James see that. James wasn't taking a salary. They wasn't taking a salary. They were doing it just out of the sense of community to make sure that this enterprise is successful for the whole Western region and for Takrady in particular. But Nyakpo used to bring his van and do all sorts of things that he wasn't being paid for.
It was a public service. It was a beautiful public service.
Exactly. That's the kind of thing that, that helps them to also stay on course and achieve what they were able to.
So tell me, Maame, what are some of the memories you have of Sky? And I know you painted a broad picture already, just how we were family, how we liked each other, how we worked 7 days a week, and people didn't necessarily want to go home even when they closed, and when you have a program, you came there hours before your program started just to be with this family. What were some other vivid memories you had? Because we had a lot of fun even on air, and we did outside broadcasts frequently. What were some other moments you recall that just was amazing?
Let me tell you, Philip, I was a star in Takrady. Look, that sense of recognition. You go somewhere and somebody will ask your name and you're like, my name is Maame, and I wasn't even adding my last name, though I used to mention my last name on air. All I had to do was to say, "Oh, Rabbi Forden, Mr. Maame," and then it will be like
your voice.
Yes. Just my voice. They could recognize my voice. Look, let me tell you a funny story. Where my gynae was at Iskado Polyclinic, Dr. Wilberforce. And anytime I would go for my antenatal check, I was treated like royalty. I never joined the queue. I would just get there whatever time. Whoever was in there, if I got there and there was somebody with Dr. Wilberforce, all I had to do was, and as soon as that person got out, and then they would tell the people who had queued that she has to be on air, so we'll give her priority.
And people understood.
Oh, they were more than happy to let me go. More than happy. And they would all be like, "Ooh, only here. And then, getting to the time of my delivery, the nurses told me, if you come and misbehave, you know how labor pains make some women go crazy?
Yes.
So they told me, if you come, you go into labor and you misbehave, we will call Sky and tell them that when Maame came to have a baby." Can you imagine that kind of sword hanging over my head? I was a stellar candidate in labor. I tell you, if I say so myself. The nurses, the next, when they came to work in the morning, they went and asked the midwife, "How did she behave?" And she said, "I've never seen a woman who's never had a baby who behaved like that."
They put the fear of God in you.
Lucky. So, and going to the shop to even buy something. Remember how we used to get freebies?
We used to get freebies.
I want this, I want that. And then you're ready to pay. And somebody says, "Hey, Maame," and then the person who's selling it, amazing. And then the people that you got to meet, influential people that you got to interview, people that you got to meet. I remember, I don't know if they have it in the archives, but I remember that I interviewed Nana Akufo-Addo.
Mm-hmm. The current president.
And yes, the current president. This, I think this was before I interviewed Bosom Chesang. Even with all that, like you mentioned, Kaku Kosa, these were people we could just walk into their offices, needed something done. They helped you to get it done. Things like that. That it made you realize that whatever you're doing, people are listening, people are watching, people appreciate, what you're doing.
And in spite of everything you've said, can I also say that in many ways, we didn't fully appreciate the power that was unleashed by our collective work, because it was only after a long time. Look, people took us more serious than we ever took ourselves.
Yes.
People took us really serious.
We were very young. I mean, when I joined Sky, I was 26. I had just 97.
97, yes.
Yes, 97. I was out of university in 95, got married in 96, and 97 joined Sky. Yeah, 26. And I was, pretty green. Just out of college, finished national service, had started my first job. So we were, most of us, Yuki, Maame, you guys were so young.
I was 20, I was 23 years old in 1997.
Look at that. Exactly. So if at 23, what responsibilities did you have?
Nothing.
Nothing. All you wanted to do was work, make a little money, and just be on your way.
And then buy the best ghetto blaster you can find at Milcom or something. That's it.
Thank you. That's it. So we like you say, we didn't take ourselves seriously. And I think that not taking ourselves seriously also helped us in a lot of ways to make that impact. Because we're not looking at what we were going to get. We were more interested in what we were contributing.
Yeah.
It was all about making sure that Sky would stay number one, making sure that we would get all the adverts in the world until the pains of growing and all that set. And for me, the only major reason was when I had started my family and I needed more time for myself and my family. And this working 7 days a week wasn't going to cut. And remember, I was also the marketing manager as well.
You were marketing manager. I remember you were marketing manager.
Yeah. So I was super busy. And I realized that when Nana was turning one, that, this thing's not working. Carry your child to work. Totally not going to, long term, it wouldn't work. Even after I left, I was always there. Every lunchtime, I would just ask the driver, my work driver, to drive me to Sky, come and sit there and just talk. And then when my lunch break is over, I get my time. But that was the family that we were. Even up to now, we talk, so it was. Yeah,
I think with Sky, what goes around comes around. Looks like everyone who left there, regardless of a circumstance, tends to come back or remains, because there's just something that is so attractive there where it's almost like it's your baby. Sky was like a baby for the presenters,
Yeah, that is the reason why everybody, because we all have a sense of ownership, even though we do not own it. But the way the whole thing started organically, it gave you, because the sacrifices all of us had to put in to make this thing work. Okay? It if it was valued and we had to be paid it money, we would all be very rich, I swear. So that sacrifice, that investment we all personally made, gives us that sense of ownership that at the end of the day, this thing belongs to me. I need to be part of it. I still, even if I'm not there, I still feel that kinship, that fellowship. You get it. So that is the reason why, we all go, even though we still have, that fond memories and all that. Yeah.
Prior to Sky, did you have any history with Takoradi before? Did you ever live there?
Oh, yeah. My uncle, whom I mentioned,
Kwesi Brew.
I lived with him at age 6, and we used to live in Takoradi. We used to live in Airport Hill. So I went to Chapel Hill school, and then so Takoradi has always been my thing. So I had friends from Chapel Hill, and I knew my part of my mother's family and my father's cousins, all lived. I had family everywhere. So I was at home. I mean, it wasn't like an Accra girl being just like a trunk. No. I had roots there, so I was very comfortable. Very, very comfortable.
It's amazing how much we rely on our memory. But when you have conversations like this, you begin to see how foggy it can be, where we do forget quite a lot,
We do.
Over the last few days, I have spoken to Phillip Nyakpo, Kwesi Fletcher, Maame, Ifwa, the Graft Edu in Nigeria, and a few others at Michael Griffiths in Accra.
Michael, yeah.
Yeah, and it's the sense of reliving Sky and those adventures. It's it begins to make me feel like, did we actually experience this? Because you kind of forget at some point,
It's amazing, and talking to you, the recollections and some of the things I'm telling you today, I haven't spoken about them in so long. So just, now you're jogging my memory, and I'm going back, and I'm reliving the on Windy Ridge, the office, and oh goodness, walking up the hill, because we didn't have a car. At that time, Sky didn't have a car.
No,
So
we didn't have a car. We walked.
Yeah, we walked.
Or took a taxi.
And I was walking and going up the hill and going down
and that hill was pretty steep as well.
Oh, it was that hill could really knock you out. Oh, wow, yeah.
And because that hill didn't kill us, we still live.
Nothing was going to kill us. Nothing. Nothing was going to kill us. It's interesting. Foggy memories, but they all come back.
Because Wilson himself didn't have a car for a long time. In fact, you will remember Bob Gardner, Robert Gardner, and he was reminding me, because I've spoken to him as well, he was saying the only car Sky had, even before the minivan came, was not Sky had. The only car, none of the staff had car. It was only J.M. Caesar who had an old Micra.
And Bedi had the van.
Bedi was part of us, but he was like so independent, apart from just coming in to play his jazz and go away. It was almost as if he wasn't fully Sky. He was in different class altogether. So so he was telling me Micra, that old Micra, and I immediately remembered it. And I'm thinking, in Australia we would say an old bomb, and he was reminding me how JM used to come and pick us all to court, to eat the fufu, and how sometimes we don't pay for it at all. And I shared with him that Efa Palace, apparently the lady who owns the place is an Ewe woman. Apparently we were related in some way, but because I became known at Sky, whenever I go there, this woman won't let me pay for the food anymore. And of course, I stopped going there, but I wanted the food. So what I'll do is I'll go there, send someone ahead of me who will buy my food, pay for it, and then call me on the phone, and then I go and just sit down and eat. And those days, when someone calls you on your phone, you have to call the person on the old Mobitel, it's expensive. Every call, it was expensive. And I tell you what, those days too, man, those mobile phones. Look, I know we have smartphones and all that, but I tell you what, none of these smartphones today beat the Mobitel of those years.
No way. No way.
The joy of getting that phone, and then you pull the antenna, and flip the phone.
Don't mess with that.
And especially when I report from outside the studio, you are standing at Efie Kuma or Kwesimin team or somewhere in New Takrady or Amanfo, and you are on the phone and you are answering questions. You are giving answers to questions that constitute news. You know what I mean? It's amazing, and going all the way to Sunyani to report on the MPP Congress, where Kufuor, Kufuor was selected and eventually became president. You know what I mean? And those days, no one had, in Takrady, people hadn't experienced what it means to have live broadcasts on the phone. And the newsroom will go to the city and do vox pop, get people's opinions on issues and bring it back and play. And someone, for the first time in their lives, they could hear their own voice on radio, and it's about the only time it ever happened. Man, the feeling and the area where you did the report from, days and days afterwards, they would say, and this person from Sky, this is where they stood and did a live report. And then you make the mistake of walking past again and say, hey, Phillip, or whoever it is, or Fletcher. And goodness, you go like, oh my goodness, I just want to get to the post office. And and maybe another memory I could also share with you was before Sky actually came. So I returned from Australia in 1996 and started working with the Ghanaian Chronicle and the Ghanaian Voice. And then the following year, I think it was early 97, I discovered what's called the Radio and TV magazine, RTV. I don't know if you remember, published by Robert Mills. And the editor was Augustine Nelson, and I became part of them. So we were reporting on all these juicy stories from the Accra radio stations, and then all of Twin City Radio wasn't that much alive, but I found stories there. And because Twin City Radio came in August 94. Before I first came to Australia, and then all of a sudden the rumor started. There's a new private radio station coming to Takrady. I hunted it down. I discovered Wilson, interviewed him then. It is before even the test transmission started, So as all of you guys started coming in as new employees, I saw you all. I was kind of learning about you all like an outsider, even though for some reason I knew I was absolutely going to be part of Sky. But I had the hunger of needing to write some of the stories before, some of the gossips and interesting personalities and things like that. I did a profile on Rutai, on Kwesi Fletcher, and a few others, And then one day, Wilson just says, yeah, come and help with the newsroom. And then that was how I got into Sky as well,
Wow.
And so thinking back and knowing, of course, that, whereas I wasn't the original 19, because at that time I was still with RTV, I reported on the inauguration and everything. It was a privilege to see it, from the ground up at that time. In fact, one of the other things I remember was that the first antenna that was built to start broadcasting, it fell. The whole thing fell and collapsed, And there was a storm, and then the whole thing just turned, into mangled pieces of, Yeah. It's just amazing. And I was impressed with Willie. I mean, even back then I could see the guy was a visionary, He was, and he knew he can recognize talent when he sees one. And in 2004, before I left, this is when the TV station was already transmitting. I interviewed Wilson himself for about an hour, because at that time I knew the time for me to leave was coming. And I thought for posterity's sake, I should talk to this guy, because one day we will need that interview, And I never knew. It is only today that it will kind of click in my mind to say, all right, let's get back and see what how we can look at this history and turn it into a document that would live long after we're gone.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. No, it's very important. It is. I think you are embarking on a very important venture. It is absolutely necessary. That is one part of our way of doing things that is not treasured. We do not
preserve.
Yes, we don't.
And
it
actually aches me. Let me put it that way. It aches me a lot, because many, many years ago, one of the guys who came long after you, Ani Osabute, he later on joined Joy FM in Accra, and later on went to University of...
Ani worked with Sky?
Yeah, Ani worked with Sky. In fact,
he lives in the corner here.
I trained him. Sorry?
He lives on this Pram.
He's a Pram boy, Pram fisherman, in fact, he's the reason why I decided that in the future I'll make Pram my home, because the guy just loves Pram.
I will reach out to him and ask him,
I trained him at Sky because he came from UCC, and then walked in, and says, hey, so we used him a lot in the newsroom. He was amazing, he was determined, he wanted to succeed, and he absolutely did, Yeah. And when I came to Pram, man, one of the things he told me that was very moving, because I stood and I said to him, because this is when he had just returned from Columbia University. You see, that's the funniest thing. So this is the 2007 when I came here. We arrived in the night. In the morning, I couldn't wait to see the sunlight in Ghana and, look at all these goats, running around. And my kids just loved the idea of seeing goats like live, not on TV, So I took them out. And then this car was coming. The guy stopped and he said, Philip. And it was this guy, Osabute. I'm saying, what are you doing here? I thought you were in America like 2 weeks ago. He said, yeah, he just arrived. What am I doing here? So eventually I asked him, how come he loves Pram so much? And then he turned around, pointed to the cemetery. He said, you see that cemetery there? My auntie is buried there. My mother is buried there. Those are all my people. So when I die, I'll be buried there. This is where I want to live. Man, I felt it was so inspiring. And I thought, wouldn't it be nice if everyone had that sense of connection? Because having lived in America, you would see a lot of people, they are emotionally, they don't feel connected. You know, it's not about necessarily about good roads. Good roads are nice and dependable electricity and all, but you have to find meaning at some fundamental level. And if you don't have that, you feel robbed in a way that you can't even put into words. But this guy is conscious. He knows who he is, where he ought to be, you know. And I thought, you know what? I can claim something like that as well, you know. So it's been an incredible, beautiful journey. Really, really beautiful journey. Someone told me, don't try to write a book. But I'm foolish enough to, you know, just like you tell someone, don't touch the fire, and then they go for it, you know. I have no idea how it will come about, but I have to start taking the baby steps. You know, because, you know, and I've seen just how we trample on history, our own history. We don't bring it alive. There's so many. Look, I interviewed briefly J. Addison before he died. And I didn't even know that he supplied the cement that was used to build the Akosombo Dam.
Look at that.
I mean, how incredible is that? At the time I interviewed him, he was 85 years old. And he brought Gassam to Ghana. He went traveling Europe and then brought the Norwegians, you know, to have it done. I mean, I'm thinking, and this guy, we live with him in Takrady, saw him every day, you know. At some point, I think when I was thinking about all this, I said to myself, well, what about me? What am I doing to be different? And I felt a little bit guilty because I said to myself, well, I knew Maame Mark-Hansen's brother is, you know, that brew, but I didn't think anything of it. I thought, not good. I think we should be appreciating things more than we have been.
You're right. No, you're very right. There's a big shift, our sense of preservation. I'm very happy you're doing this.
Well, Maame, look, I am honored to talk to you and to reconnect.
Thank you.
Really, really honored. Thank you so much.